Hello, welcome to Backgammon Basics. My name is Jonathan St. Martin, and today I'm going to teach you how to play one of the oldest known board games on Earth. Backgammon is truly a classic and has been played for over 5,000 years. Don't be intimidated. It's very easy to learn and anyone can play once they know how. But before we get started, a little background information. Backgammon is a two-player game where each player has 15 pieces, referred to as checkers or men, that move between 24 triangles, called points, according to the roll of 2 die. The objective of the game is to be the first to bear off all their pieces, that is to say, to move all 15 checkers off the board. You should have one backgammon board, 30 checkers, 15 of one color and 15 of another. So in this case I have 15 white pieces and 15 brown pieces. 2 dice, and a doubling cube. Some games come with these dice cups, and these are purely optional, but we're going to use them today because we got them. Now, let's set up the board. Before starting a match, your game board should look like this. This half of the board is called the inner board, and the side closest to the player is their home. So in my case, I'm on this side of the board, this part is my home, and that part is my opponent's home. I'm be playing as white, my opponent is going to be brown. So again, this is the inner board, therefore this is the outer board. Players move pieces along a horseshoe-shaped route along the board until all their checkers are in their home. I'm going to demonstrate how movement looks in just a moment, but basically, in my case, I'm playing as the white player. My pieces are going to move this way along the board, and the brown pieces move this way along the board. Again, I'll be moving this way, my opponent goes this way. Once a player has moved all their checkers into their home, they can begin bearing off pieces. More on that in a moment. So to briefly recap, only the white checkers are going to move this direction, and again the brown go in this direction. They cannot go backwards, so once they go forward, they can't go back. To start the game, each player rolls 1 die, and the player with the higher number moves first using the numbers shown on both dice. In other words, if I roll the higher number, I will move first using the numbers both players rolled without re-rolling the dice. So if players roll the same number, they must roll again. Then we take alternating turns rolling 2 dice at the beginning of each turn. A checker may only be moved to an open point, that is to say, one that is not occupied by 2 or more of their opposing checkers. The numbers on the 2 dice constitute separate moves. So for example, we rolled a 4 and a 1. And a 1. Therefore, we can only move one checker either 4 spaces and another checker 1 space to an open point, or we can move the same checker 4 spaces then 1 space. Now, for example, I can move this piece 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I can move this piece 1. I cannot go 1 and then 1, 2, 3, 4 because this space is occupied by more than 1 white checker. So I think with this we're going to start by opening the move with 1 and then 1, 2, 3, 4. And now we will continue to play just to get the movement going. So after a few moves, white has now rolled what we call doubles. They rolled 2 5s, which means when a player who rolls doubles, they play the numbers shown on the dice twice. So in this case, white is going to move 5 spaces 4 times. So as an example, we'll move 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then let's move 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 down there. It's important to remember that you can move the same checker more than once as long as the move is legal. Remember, you cannot land on a spot that is occupied by more than one of your opponent's checker piece. Any point that is occupied by a single checker of either color is called a blot. So right now we have 3 white blots right here, here, and here, and a single brown blot here. Now if an opposing checker lands on a blot, the blot is hit and placed on the bar here in the middle. So in this case, it is white's turn, and they rolled a 5 and a 4. White, if they so choose so, can move this piece 1, 2, 3, 4 and hit this blot. This brown piece moves to the bar in the center, and white occupies the spot that was formerly the blot. Anytime a player has one or more checkers on the bar, his first obligation is to enter that checker into the opposing home board. So this piece needs to be put right back into play, but it has to come in on white's home. He cannot make any other moves until that checker is back in play. Now a checker is entered by moving it to an open point corresponding to one of the numbers of the rolled dice. So we're going to roll a dice for brown now, and we rolled a 1 and a 5, which is good. The brown can move in at 1 or 5, and I'm going to put him at 5, since that'll put him closer away. Now, brown can't go another spot because, remember what we said? This is more than 1. He can't enter that spot. But let's get our revenge and move this piece and hit white. So white now has to enter back into the field. So let's try that with white. So let's see if we can get white back into the home. And it can. White can enter at 4 or at 1. And then I'm going to want to protect this blot here, so I'm going to move it there. Now we're protected. As you can see, white now has all their pieces in the home field of the board. Therefore, they can begin bearing off their pieces in order to win the game. Once a player has moved all their pieces into their home board, they may commence the bearing off process. A player bears off the checker by rolling a number that corresponds to the point which the checker resides, and then removing the checker from the board. Thus, rolling a 6 permits the player to remove a checker from the 6 point. Or, for example, if I roll for white, they rolled a 6, they can remove that piece, and I can even remove the 2 piece. And then it'll be brown's turn. They're going to move a piece. They want to move it there. And 1, 2, 3 there. Back to white. They roll a 1 and a 6. And thus play will continue until all the pieces have been borne off the board. Now it is entirely possible for a checker to receive a hit. Let's say brown had a piece still waiting to come back into play but couldn't. But then they roll a 1. The brown can actually hit this checker, or blot, remember, and now white can no longer continue to bear off pieces because it doesn't have a checker in home. It has to get this piece back all the way around in order to win. It's important to note that if the player who's bearing off rolls higher than a point higher than what is actually on there, they can move the piece off. So since they rolled a 2 and a 4, in this case white can bear off something off 2. Since they don't have anything on 4 and higher than that, they can bear off 3. Now, if there was a checker on 6, but nothing on 4, they would have to move the checker on point 6. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then play resumes. With that, white has won the game. Once a player has bared off all their pieces, they have won the match. If they've bored off all their pieces before their opponent, they've won the game with 1 point. If they manage to get all their pieces off the board before their opponent manages to bear off any of their pieces, that's called a gammon, and they win 2 points. If they manage to bear off all their pieces while their opponent still has a piece in their opponent's home, so let's say Brown still had a piece in my home, that's what's called a backgammon, the name of the game, and that wins 3 points.